The quest for an inclusive economy in KwaZulu Natal, that's the challenge by the Economic Development, Tourism and Environmental Affairs MEC Sboniso Duma is proposing. Now, he says a sovereign fund for the province is one way to ensure a radical and agile transformation of its economy. Duma made the remarks at an event celebrating 100 days in office. He joins me now for a discussion. Mr. Duma, thank you very much for making the time for this conversation. Let's begin with the proposal of a sovereign fund. Some people will say that province should have been a construction site by now, given the devastation of the April floods. In other words, rebuilding should already be an investment, but also employment opportunity for people of KwaZulu Natal. Is that happening right now?
Good morning, Brother Mgambi, to yourself, your good self, and your viewers at home. It's true that we suffered floods, and the issue of unrest also had a negative impact towards our outlook as a province. The issue of sovereign wealth fund, in most cases, it will assist with the state-driven investment as a vehicle to form the process and fast-track the issues. I'm sure you are aware of the regulations like PFMA, MFMA when it comes to three spheres of government. In some instances, that delays the issue of implementation. So if you could create an enabling factor called sovereign wealth fund, it will become easy to fast track and implement our investment. At this point in time, there is a serious backlog and we are all worried. I could just highlight that we've got companies like Toyota, like Mondi. They can't be insured because we had to fix Umla's BAM first. We must also deal with the canal. So we just have to juxtapose the process of having our stability. In some instances or here in other countries, this is used as a stabilizer of ensuring that you just tap from that resource in a form of reserves.
Yeah. I don't know whether I'm reading this incorrectly, Mr. Duma, and you'll tell me if I'm wrong. If this is the proposal you are putting forward, a sovereign wealth fund in order to boost economic activity in KwaZulu Natal, that tells me, at least, that there is no flow of investment, there is no flow of money into KZN. Is that a correct reading or not?
No, it's a correct misconception. In KwaZulu Natal, go to Dube Trade Port. There are serious activities. There are construction that are currently taking place. Go to N3 from Pietermaritzburg to Durban is currently under construction, billions of money. Recently, there's been an award of Spaghetti Johnson towards the N2. There are activities. We are saying that they are not adequate because we want to drive a proper method of reviving our township. So we want to revive the economy inside the township, which is why we are strategically giving some grants. In some instances, we're also giving some funding to entice the space of rural development. So there are activities. KwaZulu Natal is growing. It's just that it is no longer at the maximum capacity rate that we want. You go, there is a corridor, Qatar corridors. There is a mall being built at the Shongwe at the value of some 4 billion. So there are activities that are taking place, but our focal area is that why don't you revive a strategy where if there's a need to rebrand Nongoma, to rebrand Umsinga, to rebrand Umzumbe, to rebrand Umkanyagute, it must be at a rate that we know is not going to compromise at the level of maintenance at the same time, because as you rebuild, you need to maintain. So there is no clear funding or there is no adequate funding when it comes to that. Yeah. We have been declared as the most conducive. The Tegwini International Conference Center has been declared as a conducive space, and the President has also said so as well, that you must come and invest in KwaZulu Natal, but we want more.
Your proposal of a sovereign wealth fund, it remains exactly that, a proposal. It's a wish. Let's talk about what you currently have in front of you as possible tools to encourage economic activity in KZN. Your portfolio includes tourism. We are in the December month. The beaches, the mayor said that they are going to be opened, at least in the majority, but there are serious concerns about whether or not the beaches themselves are ready to take in the visitors, given the sewage that is flowing into the ocean. Is that taken care of, MEC?
I wish you could come and go and have a look at Ohlange water treatment. Currently, there is a construction that is taking place on site, which was affecting Umhlanga area in particular. We are dealing with those issues. It's the same at Mazinto. Some of the beaches have been opened. It's just that we don't think that it is always strategic to come running to the media, but we are hitting the ground running. By the 1st of December, probably 3 other strategic beaches would have been open. So at the Tebuini, things have been slowly, because after the issue of floods, you will know that we were disturbed at the level of human settlement. Some of the alignment patterning had to be closer range, guided by the Premier. So the Premier assembled a team that is going to ensure that we monitor with Tebuini, because we should create an enabling environment amongst ourselves in terms of IGR. But if there's a need, we must intervene. We have intervened. At the level of HR, we have delegated a team of environmental specialists to test the issue of E. coli, to give them facilities, the capacity that is also lacking within the municipality, so that we don't play a role of being a big brother, but participate, so that by the time we start the 1st of December, people will flock, will attract more tourists. At least we've already reached 4 million. We intend to have 6 million by the end of the festive season.
Yeah. Let's deal then with what I would want to think critics are going to say. That's a controversial statement from you when you say that for this sovereign wealth fund to be enacted, you also need to look at it if you are a public representative, if you are a person who is genuinely interested in serving the people. You've got to move beyond what you think is a hurdle, and that is the Public Finance Management Act. In other words, you said that you cannot claim to be blocked in your efforts to release investments by the Public Finance Management Act. These are rules by which government officials have got to play by here, MEC, and I don't need to remind you of the scourge of corruption. It is one way to protect against corruption. So if you're going to say words like that, why would people trust that if you were to start this fund tomorrow, there are not going to be safeguards around it in the form of PFMA? Who's to say that money is going to be used towards what it is intended for?
I wish the statement is taken into correct context. Currently, let me start by that HR has received a clean audit. It's a nice thing that when it comes to paper trail, we are able to adhere with all the rules. But what we are saying that if you apply the T and the principle formulation of the Constitution, by now we would have addressed the issue of the outlook. We have not fast-tracked the pace. That is why we even went further and said that in 94, what was won solely is political veto power, not the economic power. What we want, our people want, is the issue of proper service delivery, owning the means of production. Go to KwaZulu Natal, we've got 600 kilometers of the coastline, which has not been transformed to be benefiting our people. We don't have the vessels in South Africa. So if you go to Transnet Harbour these days, the issue of beneficiation still lies within the boundaries of the minorities. So that we are saying that PFMA as a tool must not be utilized as a barrier, which is why the issue of Section 217 of the Constitution must be based closer so that we transform. So that's why it is a reckless statement for a minister, for instance, to say that let us scrap the BE. Now is not the time. Otherwise, our people are going to revolt against us. Let us service them. Let us balance the equation. Because for me, to be clinical when it comes to PFMA and MFMA, yet you're not doing the service delivery. Because go to Western Cape, Kwanyanga, Walanga area, people are starving, but year to year, they are getting clean audit. Our people are not assisted in the process. As you learned in their airport, there are still human settlements party that have not been redressed. So we were referring to those things, the causality effect, that when you apply these regulations, when you implement these memos, at the back of your head, you must remember that let us prioritize township recovery plan. Let us prioritize economic recovery plan on our rural areas so that those areas are also being developed. So that was the letter and the spirit or the intention of what we were talking about, that our technocrats must not only adhere towards the rules, not to an effect of changing people's life, because the rules allow us that, but they tend to be selective on the application.
Yeah, well, as you and I agree that, yes, the PFMA, it is meant to deter the would-be corrupt civil servant, but it is a matter that you actually did tackle in your speech, because corruption is what you say has become the face of black people in South Africa, and you are saying that it is actually an incorrect way of actually reading the situation. Why is it your view that corruption has been equated to a black face in South Africa?
The great philosopher Karl Marx defined corruption in a nice way. He said, capitalism is inherent with corruption. So that system on its own, there lies an embedded factor of corruption. We could take a lot of things. If we can expand, like for instance, you spoke about 2010 World Cup. You remember the World Cup, that at the end, those construction companies went back to government and said, we connived. And because they didn't use corruption, they say that they sat as a team in terms of quoting, then they want to give money back to government. It was never declared as corruption. That is corruption of the highest order. Go to Taka Brand these days, they will be declared in terms of competitive edge, but it's not declared as corruption. So corruption was saying that it has been polarized, the element. It is only if Ngambi has been involved in 400,000 or 500 or 1 million. But if there are billions like Steinhoff, it will not be designed or it will not be declared as a clear conduct of corruption. So we were talking about that element, that we must be clinical when it comes to the approach. We must be broad enough to understand the scope of corruption so that we can be able to fight with the scourge called corruption in its truest form. Currently, Hawks stated in South Africa, the law enforcement agents, that they don't have the capacity or the capability of dealing with the issue of Steinhoff matter. And Steinhoff at some point in time broadly and arrogantly so said, we can even lend you or we can give you some money, come and investigate us. Is it not that bizarre? I think it is bizarre. Yeah. There are a lot of activities that are taking place on the ground at a higher scale of monopolies driving the system incorrectly, but they've never been declared. So that's the point of what we were saying, that let us allay. But we were emphatic on the same thing, that ANC as the ruling party must not be involved in such factors and must go at a strategic level of dealing with the corrupter and the corruptee. We tend to be so focused on those who are declared at the level of mechanical process being utilized, not deal with the roots.
Babu Duma, I've got to tell you that indeed you have actually given the anecdotal evidence. In fact, I will probably be wrapped over the knuckles for saying it's anecdotes. Some of these cases are actually before the courts of law, as per Steiner, for example, whose case is going to be heard in Germany. I'm completely out of time, and I know I'll be in trouble with my team here, but I've got to put the question to you around the manner in which you have driven this 100 days process. You know, it's almost as if it was the premier of a province that had concluded 100 days in office. And it leads me to ask the question around whether this is in part a campaign to say this is what you're going to be doing when you become premier in 2024. The question is not around that. The question is whether or not you think the ANC is going to be returned to power in 2024. Very briefly, less than a minute.
We serve at the behest of our people. On the ground, there is a nice euphoria around the issue of KwaZulu Natal leadership of the ANC. And people are saying that, thank you so much for reviving the elements of his Mbizo. Thank you so much for being responsive and coming back and giving us some answers. So far so good. I think we've been visible. I think ANC should be the lead of the society holistically, not through words. If there are service delivery matters, we must be found there. If there are discrepancies, if there are injustices, we must be bold enough to be championing those at the interest of their people, at the issue of having a corner-tight approach of going back to our people. Yes, we are going to win 2024 in the province of KwaZulu Natal. People are happy. People are raving about the elements that there are still some challenges, and we are going to address those matters, but we're not going to finish them at this rate if we don't have some elements like sovereign wealth fund, which is going to be at the level of driving the investment as the state.
Sboniso Duma, let me thank you very much for your time. MEC of Economic Development, Tourism and Environment in KwaZulu Natal. Well, that last question, it's a political one because he wears the hat of ANC chairperson in that province. He says, you are happy, the people of KZN, about the performance of the ANC. What do you think? Do you agree with him? Still to